Okay, the Committee of Finance will come to order. Today is Friday, so last day of the week we get to go home this weekend. We have one more briefing today this morning with the Department of Defense. General, please.
Aloha and good morning. Chair Yamashita, Vice Chair Kitagawa, other committee members. I'm Major General Kenneth Hara. I'm the Adjutant General for the State of Hawaii Department of Defense. And I'll be providing the information briefing for our department's budget request for fiscal year 24-25. Before I start, I'd like to introduce my team real quickly. So with me is my Deputy Adjutant General, Brigadier General Steve Logan, the Acting Chief of Staff for the Hawaii Army National Guard, Colonel Byron Cadiz, the Director of Staff for the Hawaii Air National Guard, Colonel Christoph Sills, the Administrator for Hawaii Emergency Management Agency, Luke Myers, the Administrator for the Office of Homeland Security, Frank Pace, Administrator for that oversees the community programs that oversees the Youth Challenge Academy, Brigadier General Retired Bruce Oliveira. Not with us is Ron Hahn, who's the Director for Office of Veteran Services. My Military Support Officer, Brigadier General Neil Mitsuyoshi, my Administrative Service Officer, Colonel Retired Rusty Spray, and Chief Engineering Officer, Captain Xiaoyu Lee. The State of Hawaii Department of Defense's mission is to enable a safe, secure, and prosperous Hawaii. To do this, we take an all-of-community approach to prepare the state for catastrophic natural and human-caused disasters. The department coordinates preparedness activities, improve the state's ability to prevent an event, build resilience to absorb the effects of a disaster, and by organizing capabilities, capacities, and authorities to rapidly respond to and recover from disasters. Additionally, the Hawaii National Guard must be ready to mobilize and deploy to fight and win our nation's wars. A major condition that is impacting the department is the fiscal year 23 fringe rate of 62.78%. The federal program policy shifted to a fixed budget and directed that federal funds only be authorized for projects, and we can no longer use these federal funds for personnel cost offset. To mitigate these shortfalls, HIMA uses in-kind assistance to cover the state matching funds, and the Youth Challenge Academy must hire 89-day temporary hire personnel to, as I said, to mitigate that. The programs at risk of potentially losing federal funds if the state match funds are not granted is a state and local cybersecurity grant. So we need $3.5 million in state match, which will bring in an additional $11.2 million of federal funds. And then for the Hawaii National Guard Youth Challenge Academy, we need $6.7 million annually. Currently, State Department of Defense has 484.5 positions. That's 271 permanent and 213 temporary. Our total vacancies are 181, which 39 are filled by 89-day hires. Our department's fiscal year 23 to 25 budget subsequent to the governor's decision is $35.3 million in general funds. We anticipate this will bring in approximately $90.7 million in federal funds. Major adjustments contained in the budget request are $5 million for the post-disaster major disaster fund, an additional $2.5 million in general funds to be able to access an already approved federal match of $4.5 million, and $700,000 in salary increases for all eligible program positions within the Hawaii National Guard Youth Challenge program. The last time we made an increase in this program was 2012, and 13 years ago. Next one is $21.4 million in various capital improvement projects, of which $12.2 million are in bond funds, and the remaining request is $9.2 million in federal funding. Details of the CIP request can be found in Table 15. This concludes my information briefing, Chair, and I have my entire team here that can, and myself, to take questions.
Okay,
thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, members, we'll go straight to questions. Any questions? Okay, Representative Garrett.
Thank you, Chair. Major General? Not a question right off the bat, but just wanted to say, awesome mustache. Almost didn't recognize you there for a second.
It's a pilot program. My wife's tried, so I'm not sure how long it's going to last.
But no, just wanted to thank you for your steadfast leadership during the COVID-19 pandemic as our incident commander. I think you're largely responsible for the great metrics we had as a community. So just wanted to thank you for that, first of all. Can you just kind of explain some of the recruiting and retention challenges you have within the DoD? And also, Mr. Myers, if you could speak to some of the issues HIEMA is having with personnel.
Okay. I think the biggest challenge we had is probably process, mapping out from the time you're trying to recruit someone, and then you have a list of eligibles, and then you actually go into and do the interviews. And oftentimes, is by the time you do the interviews, then they say, oh, the list is no longer eligible, and you got to start all over that. So that's one of the major hiccups. And it's been challenging. The other challenge is, if you look at the rate, the salaries that we pay our state employees is way lower than comparable positions. So oftentimes, in HIEMA, Luke will probably speak to this as well, though. We hire someone, they start training up, and then soon thereafter they get sucked into even the county, city and county of Honolulu for a similar position, but with much more pay. So it's really challenging, just the market itself. So it's a whole combination of things. But on the bright side, with the new DHERD leadership, we're going to create a working group and do that mapping process to look at how can we lean it out and be more expeditious at hiring people. Luke, you had anything to add?
Yeah, some of the challenges at HIEMA on average has been taking about 189 days to fill a number of the positions. So from a recruitment perspective, we've had individuals who have applied, and there hasn't been a lot of situational awareness. And then when we do get them on board, it may almost be a year into the process. Building on General Hara's comments, it is a very competitive market in the public safety and emergency management field. So not only are we competing with the counties, we're competing with the private sector and some of our federal partners. I do think one of the big things is just providing situational awareness to the applicants in the state. Right now, the existing civil service hiring process, we just had an individual, we advertised in April, they applied in July, we interviewed them in December. So they went 5 months without even knowing whether the state was going to try to recruit or provide them an opportunity.
If you could just stay there for just a second. So I know some of the challenges too is maybe the civil service model doesn't quite work for your agency. Are you going to pursue trying to convert some of these to exempt positions in this upcoming session?
Yes, sir. So we do have a legislative proposal to convert our emergency management specialist series, which we worked on with DHERD during the pandemic. We have an older civil defense planner series that we are phasing out. And the idea is to potentially exempt levels 4, 5, 6, and 7. We believe this will make us competitive with all the partners and provide an open recruitment process.
Thank you, Administrator. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Questions? Representative Ward. Thank you, Chair.
General Hara, selamat pagi, apa kabar? Do you remember your Indonesian, all those trips that you've taken?
Sorry, selamat pagi.
Okay, got it. That's good morning, everybody. Following Representative Garrett's note, manpower shortage is clearly obvious. What about equipment and otherwise preparation, planes, guns, munitions, et cetera? How are you guys doing?
Yeah, I don't have any issues with equipment. The one exception, the big ticket item that we're really trying to push for is a bucket truck for the Hawaii Emergency Management Agency. And the reason is they'll help us with doing maintenance on the sirens throughout, throughout this island.
A bucket truck, you mean the cherry pickers that?
Correct,
Oh,
exactly.
okay.
And what's been happening at some of the locations, we're making repairs to the system, and then people are going on there vandalizing, the electronics of the siren. So what we want to do is move that up out of reach to try to mitigate some of that, but then we need that bucket truck to be able to do
What do
those
you
type
mean
of services.
vandalizing the electronics of the siren?
Destroying,
I mean, there's copper, what are they going for?
they're just destroying it.
Catalytic converters and those
They
things?
go in there, repair it, and then within a week, it gets vandalized and destroyed. And we're gonna start all over again.
Do they make money on that, or is just?
I think it's just hoodlums.
Oh, okay. Speaking of which, and this is Chair, off subject, but it's very important because you guys have a key role. We're in the middle of the Pacific. Xi Jinping is looking at Taiwan. Are you guys prepared? You got plans or contingencies and whatever you can say publicly about that? Because that is a big concern.
So on the federal side, remember I talked about our mission to be able to mobilize and fight and win our nation's wars? So the first answer is yes. That's the U.S. Indo-Pacific Command with all of their component commands, Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marines. There are plans in place in case of a contingency if we go from conflict to crisis. I mean, from competition, crisis to conflict. So there are military plans in place. My role as the administrator for the Office of Homeland Security, we've been working closely with the critical infrastructure, power, communications, water, sewer, banking, most of the major critical infrastructure that would be, we think, may be targeted should we get into a crisis situation. So helping them to build resilience, looking at how we can augment to secure their critical capabilities. If we start escalating and we think there's a need that we need to physically protect certain areas, coordinating with the law enforcement, and then helping them to build their own resilience in their programs. So we've been working very closely with those sectors.
On the note of critical infrastructure, is it true you can take a rifle, shoot out a HECO transformer, and knock out a good part of the
I don't know the
population?
answer to that, but there were at least, I think, 5 instances. Where's Frank?
On the mainland, it's happened. They said-
Three instances. So HECO did contact us, and they are concerned. I mean, it could happen, yes.
Last question is, what is the actual number of the shortage? I mean, how many, what's the manpower number? 100, 200, 1,000? How many people are you short?
181.
Okay, okay, I missed that. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you,
thanks.
General. Thank you, and congratulations on your appointment.
Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. Representative Kobayashi.
I'm looking at your table 4, budget decisions with initial department requests, and then on the right-hand side, governor's decisions. It looks like you have 2 full pages of initial department requests, maybe 100 items. Looks like governor approved 15 or so. And then you say that your glaring issue is a bucket truck? I mean,
That's not my number one priority.
Oh.
Yeah, the number one priority is the Hilo hazmat ceiling remediation. So
Oh.
we look at safety
okay.
first, and of which the reason why the bucket truck is high on the priority is because it's about safety, right? If there's an emergency, that's the state's and the county's way to be able to alert the public.
Okay.
Bucket
But-
truck on my list is number 3 overall.
Oh, this is in priority order,
I don't,
the table 4? I mean,
yeah, I guess not.
hazmat is number 1 and bucket truck is number 3.
Yeah, so on my overall list was hazmat ceiling remediation 1, the Hawaii State Veterans Cemetery admin walkway, again, a safety concern. That was
Oh.
number 2, and then the bucket truck.
Okay. We assume that, like other departments, this is budget work in progress, so Governor Green's real budget will rectify some of these.
Correct. I believe the strategy with Governor Green and the Budget and Finance is most of the approvals that were carried forward from Governor Ige's administration, because they're so focused on getting the overall budget set, is to just go with whatever Ige did for the departments, and then the first governor's message will come in with all our appeal items.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Any further question, Representative Kahalo?
Mahalo, Chair. Aloha, everyone. And again, to Major General Hara and his team, thank you again for just your support during the pandemic and all the help that Rep Garrett talked about, but also for response to disasters across the state as well. And as a Hawaii Island resident, we know what those are and what those impacts are. So thank you for spending a lot of time on Hawaii Island and a lot of focus.
I'm from Hilo, but I like to visit for other reasons.
Hopefully you don't have to visit again soon. Stays contained. Or come for fun, for mochi or other things.
Correct.
But I really also admire the Youth Challenge program, and I know one is based in Hilo, and I think one maybe Kalailoa. Can you talk about what that impact, like how many youth you're serving, and is there any opportunity to expand that to other neighbor islands? Because I know in Hilo there's youth that come from all over the neighbor islands, just to be able to broaden impact.
So what I'll do is I'll start with kind of explaining the program, and then actually I'll call up Brigadier General Retired Oliveira, who administers all of the outreach. So we take 16 to 18-year-old high school dropouts, put them in a program it's similar to the military's basic training. So we teach them discipline, life coping skills. They do teach them additional skills like culinary arts. It's a 5.5-month program. There is one program in Kalailoa. Our target is 100 cadets. And then the one in Hilo, our target is 75. I would like to bump that up to 100. However, the challenge is in the past couple of iterations, we had a really difficult time recruiting to those programs. So the Hilo program is actually at risk of being shut down. So, it's kind of counterintuitive, right? Because we do want these kids to stay in the mainstream Department of Education or charter or private school system, and we're an alternative. I mean, I'd like to work myself out of this job and make sure that everyone graduates from high school. However, if we cannot fill it, we won't be able to get those federal funds in. So I'll have General Oliver talk a little bit more about, Bruce, if you can talk about the challenges with the Hilo and some of the alternatives we're looking at.
Good morning. Thank you for that question. Hilo is a challenge as far as recruiting. And it's both recruiting in both instructors, our cadre, and the students that we have coming over. We are we're coming in low again for this next cycle. We're at about 50 right now, which is halfway of our goal. Our plan for Hilo right now, and what we have done in the last, about 3 years now, we've adjusted where both academies were taken throughout the state before. Now Kalailoa only takes cadets from Oahu. Hilo will take cadets from all the other islands, in addition to a section of Oahu. Because of the demographics, Oahu can support a lot more than all the neighbor islands put together. But even that hasn't helped, and in addition, we've put another recruiter, a full-time recruiter, station that lives out of Maui. And so with all those changes, we're still struggling in trying to get hit our goal at Hilo. Kalailoa, there's no problem. In fact, with Kalailoa, we're even going and looking at American Samoa now. We've gone out there, we've talked with them, we're talking with the National Guard Bureau, and they're working on some of their policies to include American Samoa to come in to our Canada. They're very interested to come. So we were looking at about 50 that were going to come in at this class that's starting this month. But because the policies weren't in place at the National Guard Bureau, those have to be adjusted and should be adjusted within the next couple months. I'm meeting with a congresswoman from American Samoa next month in Washington, D.C., and we're going to be talking about that program. So I don't have any problem with Kalailoa, and their numbers are going to continue to climb. In Hilo, we're still going to have some problems. There is another program that the National Guard Bureau has put out. It's called Job Challenge. And Job Challenge takes Youth Challenge graduates and continues to work with them, both academically and with careers. So if they didn't get, and we have about 10% that don't get their diplomas while they're at Youth Challenge, they can continue to work on that in Job Challenge. And then at the same time, we bring in the trades to help prepare the students for careers after that. And so they're working with all the different kinds of vocational training, and we place them and we have connections now with all the vocational areas where we can place them once they graduate. So National Guard Bureau and us are kind of looking now that maybe it would make more sense to put a job challenge in Hilo and then have the Youth Challenge Academy in Kalaeloa. So that would bring our numbers well over 200 per cycle, and we have 2 cycles a year at Kalaeloa. And then all those graduates that are still looking at it, most of them will go into some kind of vocational job, will then transfer over to Hilo and continue to work on their academic programming and careers.
Just one follow-up question. Of those that complete the program, how many of them maybe get recruited into serving in National Guard or move on to higher education, or what is that? Hopefully graduation, right? So what do they do post-program and hopefully post-high school?
So post-program, some of the students, a very small percentage, go back to their home high school. So we have them in as what we call credit recovery. So they've fallen behind in credits. We catch them up on credits and then send them back to their home school so that they can graduate with their class. Then the students that graduate that go into the military are about 10% overall. We don't push it. It's a program that uses the military structure and discipline to get the kids through, but we don't push the military. A lot of them, and what we found is a lot of them that we have a lot of students that don't want to go back home after they graduate. And this is an issue where even the Job Challenge will come in and help fix, is that we don't have another residential program to send them to afterwards. So if we send them back home, a lot of times they're going back to the same problems that brought them to us. So keeping them in Job Challenge, following Youth Challenge, is another residential program, and we can keep them a little longer and then get them placed into a career that hopefully they will be able to stand on their own once they graduate. And then as far as those going on to, most of them go on to community colleges after that. That's about another, it fluctuates, about 10 to 20% will go on to there. And we've had, we've really been pushing that program. So in the last year, we had 2 graduates that completed their associates and are now going on to within the University of Hawaii system. We have a lot of successes, though. We have students that have graduated from us that have doctorates now. Thank you. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Any further questions? Representative Kobayashi.
Could I continue with the line of questions regarding Youth Challenge? Is there a federal budget ceiling, or is this a program that can grow and largely on additional federal dollars? I mean, this would be for Youth Challenge and Job Challenge.
Yeah, so it's tied into the number of students that we have. The cap that we usually use is 25,000 per student.
I see.
And our numbers go up and down from that. This past cycle, we had a little less again, because of the challenges we've had in Hilo. So we actually took some of the money and turned it back to.
In other words, if this program recruits more students, you get more federal dollars.
Exactly, yes.
Well, you know, your earlier comment about hoping that perhaps you wouldn't need to do this kind of work within the guard system, I think is well-founded, but well nigh impossible. I mean, our DOE system obviously is sometimes more one-size-fits-all, and certain, shall we say, special populations cannot be really well accommodated within that system. So I think you're going to have a long-term task ahead of you to supplement or complement DOE.
Unfortunately, I think that's accurate statement.
So, I mean, it would seem that both for the state of Hawaii and also to help DOE,
Yes.
if you can grow your two challenges, your job challenge and your youth challenge, with federal monies, that might help us a lot.
It will help you. The students that we get actually really don't fit in it. And I'm a former teacher, counselor, student service coordinator, and vice principal from the Department of Education. I'm very familiar with this system. I'm familiar with the kids that are coming over to us. And you know, we call them at promise. Everyone else calls them at-risk students. And they're coming over with a lot of problems. And to see the students that we take at the beginning of the year and what they're like at the end of the year, and the amount of progress in all aspects is incredible. The DOE tries with their special motivation programs, with their alternative learning centers, but we have them 24/7. And when you add up all those hours that we are directly engaged with them, it's impossible unless the DOE starts running a 24/7 program, residential program. And with the federal money that also comes in with that, it just makes it that much easier.
You know, a good friend of mine said that we got a 24-hour program that helps DOE, and it's over in Kaneohe, and it has barbed wire.
We try to prevent that. We do work with them. There are a couple that are not felons there. They haven't committed any felony. And so we also take students from there to bring them to us. And if they graduate successfully,
Yeah.
then they're out.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I just wanted to clarify one thing. So when General Oliveira talked about the 20, so there's a model, right? The amount of cadets they multiply that by funding, and then you get the federal match. So generally, it's 75% to 25. The national model is 25,000 from the state, and then that'll bring in a match of 75, right? So that's why we're asking for the additional $700,000. We do not have that 25% currently. And the last time we did an increase, I mentioned, was in 2012, 13 years ago.
Thank you.
Okay.
Chair Hashem. Long time no see. Nice mustache. Are you familiar with the Alder Street program?
Which program?
There's a 24-hour juvenile system similar to what you have, where at-risk juveniles get sent not to Kaneohe side, but they go to Alder Street. We just created a new facility for them. It sounds like what you guys are doing are very similar to what the judiciary is trying to do. Are you familiar with that?
I am not.
Okay.
No.
Okay, we'll discuss this later on.
Okay. Because like our program is not just criminals, right? There's some elect to drop out of school could be family problems. You need just to get away.
Yeah, that's the same situation that Alder
Okay.
Street is in, because there are not criminals. It's the kids that are on the verge of going down the wrong path, and they try to redirect them. So it sounds very similar to what you're trying to do.
Okay,
So we can discuss that later.
sure, sounds
Thank
good.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Ward.
Can we go back to the cadet demographics? I want to ask you about the PhD guy, or gal, whichever one it is. How did that happen, and how can you find more of those? You said 15 to 20% versus the high school's got 80, 90% of the kids are going on to higher ed. So it's pretty low, and I know it's a difficult group, but how did this, is it a gal or a man or a woman or what?
Actually, we have more than one PhD. And
We talked about the chaplain to the award winner.
yeah, yeah. The two that I can think of right now are both males. But we have a lot of great female graduates too. We actually had a graduation a couple of weeks ago where the keynote speaker was a YCA graduate, and she's now a major in the United States Army. And so she talked about her problems when she was growing up, very similar.
Excuse me,
to
can you talk in the mic?
Oh, I'm
Because
sorry. Yes,
yeah, thank you.
okay. Yeah, so she talked about the problems that she had growing up with drugs, with abuse, and that when she graduated from the Youth Challenge program, she quickly fell back to what she was doing, and her father gave her an ultimatum and said, either you go to college and you graduate, or you go to the Army. So she applied for college, and she struggled with that. She went back and told her father, okay, I'm gonna go into the Army, and got into the Army, got her degree. She's an officer, a major, and is very successful right now. The PhD, there was, we have one that also came and spoke to our students a couple of years ago, and he got his PhD in a divinity program.
Didn't judges used to be able to sentence people to jail or the army or something to that effect? Can they do that now, or is that?
No, they can't do that.
No more?
No.
But you said that that's what the father said, but that wasn't.
That's what the father said, yeah. The father can, yeah, he can do what he wants.
Another metric on your cadets, what's the unemployment rate? If you follow that, do you track it at all?
We do track it, but that is very difficult to do.
It's kind of a measure whether they're gonna make it when they get out on their own.
Correct. So we place, and when we say place, either in college, in the military, or in school, in a job. We place, this last class was about 99% of all the students were placed into something. They follow up another year with mentors that we also assign to them. And those mentors keep track of what's going on and helping them stay on the right path, and helping them with any issues that they might come up with. Between the mentors and the academy, it's difficult, because some of these kids, when they're going back to the same situation they came from, they're running, we can't get a hold of them, mentors can't even get a hold of them anymore. We have a really difficult time in trying to get some kind of longevity data on how successful everything's going. And this is across the nation. This is all the Youth Challenge programs are having this problem.
You didn't mention vocational training as one of those placement. Is that one of the options?
Yes.
How popular and how utilized is that?
It's very popular. We place students in vocational training. I'd say maybe close to about 60% of our students get placed in vocational training.
They make more than legislators, you know that.
They make, it's funny, we had this one program that we set up with the shipbuilders here in Hawaii, and they needed welders. And so we went to Honolulu Community College, got a summer program where they took 11 of our students, made them welders, and gave them back to the shipbuilders. And they started off at, I think it was about $70,000 a year, and most of our staff at the academy are $30,000, $40,000 a year.
That's good news.
Yeah.
You think we need a pay raise?
Yes.
Or equivalent to that, as of January 1. Thank you very much. That's
Thank
very
you.
enlightening. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any, Representative Poy?
Thank you, Chair. So my question, I have two questions. The first one is about the emergency siren alert system. Whether there is intention to, or perhaps you already have, surveyed the areas of coverage for any gaps and would recommend installing new sirens in areas that don't currently have them. The reason I'm asking is because historically my understanding is they were primarily placed for tsunami inundation zones, but now we use them for things like missile alerts. So perhaps outside of coastal areas or that tsunami area.
Okay, so I'll start again, and then I'll turn it over to Administrator Luke Myers. The intent is, yes, for tsunami, and the priority is to the coastal areas. The problem is, again, talking about maintenance and trying to maintain. Hawaii Emergency Management Agency has a very detailed listing looking at what is the total inventory, how many are fully operational, how many are partially operational, not working, and like irreparable. And just to maintain those that are working is already a challenge. So I think if you're talking about growth, unless it's a high-risk area, probably not. And then another thing, we're not doing the missile alerts anymore. I need to make that clear. But Luke, if you can add anything else. We've learned our lesson.
Yes, ma'am. The siren system is an all-hazard system. We are trying to prioritize maintenance and repairs basically in the coastal areas or where there's immediate threat. Let's say there's a fire threat or an area down a slope of a dam. We average anywhere from 85 to 100 sirens that are need some type of maintenance on a monthly basis. And with the small team and resources that we have, that can be a challenge. We are obviously based here on Oahu. And so every month when we do our siren test, that is a way for us to validate and see if a siren needs a new solar panel, if they've been broken into, and then that gets programmed in with the resources that we have. We do acknowledge and have assessed that we need more resources specifically for the maintenance. The department has been very fortunate to receive a lot of CIP funds for new sirens. On average, it takes 2 to 3 years to put a siren in. So even if a siren has been sited, our main objective for this fiscal year is to really focus on the maintenance and to get additional resources.
Thank you. That question was from a kupuna in our community at a town hall that is in an area of gap coverage, and that's a priority for her, so I wanted to ask that question.
Okay. If you could just email me the location, and then we can take a look, because there are some areas that we are looking at putting in sirens.
Thank you.
But again, the priority right now is getting those that are already up working.
Yeah,
Okay,
understood.
thanks.
Thank you. My second question is, for this budget or any past budget, has your agency contributed to the project of building the Lani Keha Veteran Center on Molokai, on Hawaiian homelands?
I don't know the answer to that. I got to get back to you. I don't
Okay.
think so.
Okay.
All right,
Thank
thank you.
Okay. Representative Lamasao.
Hi, General Haro. This question is for you. Sorry, excuse me. Let me move my cough drop. With all the disasters, like the lava eruption and COVID, is the $5 million enough for relief, or do you need more? Or what type of resources would you need?
Okay, not to go against the administration's priority, but if you're asking me personally, I believe it's insufficient. If we have a major disaster, if you look at just COVID, and if you look at just what the Hawaii National Guard needed to do the response, I think we were averaging about $1.1 million a month. And that was a long over 2-year emergency, right? That if we did not have the federal funding, there is no way we'd be able to keep the support. And that, again, that's just talking the National Guard. Every other department in an emergency will need additional funding, and we draw down from the Major Disaster Fund. What's really challenging is most disasters, if it's a federally declared disaster, then we get federal funding, generally 75-25% again. However, it takes us time to put in the request for the federal reimbursement. So what often happens, because it takes so long to get the reimbursement, is the state fiscal year ends, and then we get the reimbursement in another year, and some of that will have to go into a special trust or back to the general fund. So the departments don't have the ability to recover.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Representative Kobayashi, followed by Garrett, followed by Ward.
May I follow up on that disaster fund?
Sure.
In past decades, there was a considerable variation in the millions of dollars variation in what went into the major disaster fund. And I remember being told that this variation is because if there really was a major disaster, there are various ways that funds can be cockroached from other accounts. And so the major disaster fund is really almost a stopgap, a kind of a placeholder. Is that notion still prevalent, or?
So the way it worked in the past, we draw down from the major disaster fund, and we used to get a certain amount of money, and it would lapse each year, and then we put in changes, and now, we can actually have some. I think, was it 2.5 million, Rusty? Yes. Yeah, 2.5 million that can carry over to another year if we didn't use it all. The governor can take money from other departments, but there's a cap. Luke, you gotta help me. Was that up to 25 million? Well, up to $10 million to pull from other departments, which actually Governor Ige did during the COVID. And then other than that, I'm not sure if they can, I don't know the legality, but maybe from the rainy day fund or something else. But I don't know. Anything beyond that, we'd have to go to the state legislature to get additional funding.
Okay, so I guess some of that old talk still applies. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Representative Garrett.
Thank you. Switching gears just a little bit, I know it sounds like the federal government's going to declare an end to the public health emergency for COVID next month, perhaps. But as the incident commander, can you just kind of give us a snapshot of where we're at today? And I've been reading about this latest Omicron variant, the XBB.1.5, I think. It seems more
XBB.1.5. Yeah,
seems more transmissible. And if we're looking at a winter surge in Hawaii, and any advice you might have for the community in preparing for that?
So first thing, I'm no longer the incident commander. March of 2021, I think, is when, or 2022 is when it went back strictly to the Department of Health. But I am tracking it closely, right? I learned so much in the 2.5 years. I've spoken to Governor Green. I am very concerned at how infectious this new variant is, but I've been tracking the hospitalizations. So we haven't seen any uptick at all related to COVID. Right now, the XBB.1.5 is the predominant COVID variant in the United States. I think it was like 40.6%, but that's national. If you look at the northeast of the United States, they're at like 86%, prevalence rate, and then that thing is moving towards the west. It's like, an analogy I gave is like an earthquake happening, we're just watching that tsunami coming closer and closer. So it's all the same things. We went through this in the past years, right? It's if you feel that you need to protect yourself and others, wear a mask, maintain the 6 feet of distance, stay at home if you can stay at home. Don't, go out having parties and everything. It's just the same things that we've been saying, but I don't think the state intends to, at this point, to do any type of restrictions. It's really on the individual to take care of themselves and others.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Representative Ward.
General, you threw out a hot topic and then abandoned it. You said the missile alert. I mean,
Yes.
you said everything's, could you give us an update on the missile? You say you guys no longer do it. So
We
what-
won't
what's
do
this?
siren warning if there's a missile threat. And the main reason is that, I gotta give you a quick class from what I understand. So when a ballistic missile is shot, there's a thruster phase, right? That's when the rockets are burning. And until that rocket stops, they cannot figure out where the point of impact is gonna be. Because our adversaries has the capability to change the trajectory. So generally, that's about 5 to 7 minutes. The total flight is 15 to 20 minutes if it was targeting Hawaii. So by the time they realize Hawaii is at threat, and we decide, go through the system to say, notify, there's really a minute to 2 minutes. It doesn't make sense to generate that, because most of the people, as we saw during the unfortunate false missile alert, was that you don't have time to seek shelter, and actually you create more hazards, put more people at risk as they're, trying to figure out how I'm gonna get to a safe place, people speeding on the highways, and everything else that was occurring. So it's really not practical.
So we'll get no warning at all, you're saying?
Other than there's a launch, so FEMA may decide, they have the capability, and I think that's what we're defaulting on now, is FEMA as the lead to determine if they're gonna notify or send out an alert, either to the wireless emergency alert system.
I thought our congressional delegation was going to relegate it to the PACOM guys and just federal, well, you said FEMA, but
It'll
they're not as
be,
in tune to missiles as.
it'll be at the national level
So
to
we
make
got
the
15 minutes,
determination.
you said, right? 5 to 7 minutes is the booster stage,
Correct.
but you don't know anything, so you've got, what, another 8 minutes to adjust? And you're saying you can't do any warnings in that 8 minutes because they change directions? And if it's a hypersonic, it's already there
Yes,
before you know it.
hypersonics. I don't know if they have the I'm not knowledgeable. I don't think they have the capability for hypersonic to go those distances at this
But
time.
that doesn't give us a sense of security in any sense or form. Because if it comes, it comes. We won't know what hit us, is what I hear you saying, actually.
Now, the Missile Defense Agency in coordination, so in California and Alaska, and then we have capabilities to detect the missile and track, and the algorithms to figure out where it's gonna land. They have missiles, interceptor missiles in Alaska and California that protect the state of Hawaii. So again, that's the primary thing, is shoot the thing out, right, so it doesn't affect the state.
So we go about our merry way until we find out what happens. Okay, that kind of reminds me of the other question, which is, when someone said it takes 2 to 3 years to put up a siren, my God, that's embarrassing as the state of Hawaii with who we are and what we can do. Why does it take 2 to 3 years to put up a siren? My God, they're only so small or so big. Why 2 to 3 years? What's going on, and what do we need to correct it? Is it money? Is it manpower? Is it leadership? Is it management? Or am I overreacting? It's normal across the world to do 2 to 3 years. I don't think China would do it probably in 2 to 3 days.
So the Department of Defense in HIEMA is responsible, in my perspective, for a small telecommunications infrastructure company. And so when you cite that type of infrastructure, you have to get easements, you have to get agreement between the partners, you have to program that among state departments, including DAGs on the CIP side. So think of it as a CIP project. If you provide money for us this legislative session to put in a new siren, it has to be programmed in over those 2 to 3 years. The easements take probably the longest perspective. It's usually about a year for an easement. So depending on who the property owner is and where we're trying to site the siren, it can be very complicated.
Luke, don't we call you guys the emergency management? Can't you get some emergency management of this kind of proposal? I mean, and we may need some legislation or something that says, I mean, because those people without the sirens, and they always break down, we always get complaints at the neighborhood board issue, or at that level. And it seems like when we hear it's gonna be 2 to 3 years, that's pretty discouraging. It makes us look pretty incompetent, quite frankly.
There is an opportunity with the easements to look at some efficiencies, so if there are common landowners, if there are state landowners or county landowners, so that we can help expedite. The other thing, I'll just, to the other representative's comment, we have to remember that alert and warning is a breadbasket approach. There are many ways to receive alert and warnings, and sirens is one of them. Whether that's through the radio, whether that's to TV, whether that's through the alerts you sign up at the county level. The sirens are just one element of those. We know that those are very important. And anything and resources we can get to help expedite the upgrading and maintaining those sirens, I would appreciate.
Well, I was hoping General Hara was gonna say, well, we'll give you a text, and you get 1 minute to go. But text is one of those probably very effective, at least with most age groups.
Yes, with any incident, you would receive all hazard alert information from a number of sources. So if on Oahu here, hnl.info, you'd receive information on those type of incidents once the information has been passed between agencies.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you,
Thank
Chair.
you, Representative Kila.
My apologies, Chair. I got to watch you folks online as we had our own traffic breakdown in West Oahu with no stoplights. So, but to Rep. Ward's comment, I am part of one of the many sirens that are going to be installed in 2024 that we put in 2022. So I understand the concern. General Hara, I want to switch gears, and you probably will still be in the position that you are. I want to talk about military land leases, and in
Okay.
the sense, are there lands that you have personally identified under your purview that can either be deemed for return, or as we continue the conversations with funding, renegotiating a fair market value for the
Right.
leased lands that we do have?
So I cannot answer that because I don't have the Kuleana responsibility, right? That is each of the service component commands. So it's not even U.S. Indo-PACOM that manages property. So it's the U.S. Army Pacific, Marine Forces Pacific, Pacific Air Forces, and the Pacific Fleet. So it's the service components through their land managers. I know we just announced recently, so we're working closely with Indo-PACOM. There's a parcel on Molokai that we spoke to all the different components, said, yeah, we don't need this. So we're in the process of working with Department of Land and Natural Resources to get that Department of Defense lands turned back over to the state of Hawaii.
No, and I definitely understand. You probably will be consulted, though.
Oh, sure.
I could imagine.
Right.
And when you see just the federal lands that are held here on Oahu, and one parcel that was estimated to be fair market value would be at $600 million plus. And I continue to look at the deficits, and I think our biggest asset in Hawaii is land, and we don't assess it to the proper value because the federal government can't pay. And so I go back to like the shortcomings of Youth Challenge. I had a brother who graduated from Youth Challenge, and I know the hard work that goes there. And so when we see the deficits, I think sometimes the easiest answers may be in front of us, and I hope those conversations continue.
Sure, absolutely.
Thank you for your
Thank
service.
you. Thanks.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Representative Boyd.
I have two questions. Well, maybe the first is just a statement, because that parcel of land is right behind our home. It's DHHL, and the lease is ending, so I believe that's why it's being brought back under DHHL to find a reuse for that parcel. And it's an old radio tower center, and it's outdated technology, and so I just want to make clear that the lease is ending and it's not,
Right. Yeah, so majority of the Department of Defense military use land leases are ending in 2029. So what the services are doing is ensuring that there still is a military need that they require to maintain the readiness of the forces or for national security. And based on that, that's why they made a determination the Department of Defense does not need that land anymore. And that's why they decided to return it before the lease termination.
And then my second question was just if there's a ballpark estimate of how much it costs to install an emergency siren?
Sure.
Yes, ma'am. On average, it's about $130,000 for the infrastructure and the equipment. That doesn't require any of the staff time from the Department of Defense, HIEMA, or DAGs from a project management perspective.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I wanted to add, and I hope I don't get in trouble for this, so not to go against the administration's priorities, we did put in a Form A to increase the staffing at Hawaii Emergency Management Agency specifically for the telecommunications branch to be able to do the maintenance, right? We keep adding these towers and not providing the manpower, so that's why so many of those sirens are not functional.
Okay, thank you very much. Representative Ward.
Thank you, Chair. Following up Representative Keela's questions regarding lands, General Hart, do you have any surplus lands? I'm very specific. You just said lands to turn over to the state. Are they surplus lands?
You talk about Department of Defense or from
Yes.
my state Department of Defense? Because
All
what
of
I
the-
was
all of
talking
them.
to was the
Anything
federal.
that deals with the state.
The only federal ones that I know about is that Molokai land at this time. Again, they're doing a current inventory assessment and making a determination. And then for my department, no, I don't have any excess lands.
I don't know if you remember Rod Perez at the Star Advertiser about 2 years ago said that there's a federal statute that says any surplus land in the state of Hawaii goes to DHHL, not to the state. You said it goes back to the state. It should go to DHHL first. Specifically, it says that. But
Okay.
Rod Perez's research said they're not following it. In fact, they gave it to some nonprofits and other things. It was a bit scandalous. So I would hope you would be aware that any surplus land goes to DHHL, specifically and
DHHL,
legally.
or my understanding was Department of Land and Natural Resources becomes the
Not
state's land
according to
manager.
that congressional act, which nobody knew about, and that's why Rod Perez kind of exposed it, and some of us are doing a documentary on it, because it's a real
Okay.
oversight of getting land of which the Hawaiians were legally by congressional act designated to have.
Okay.
Just an FYI that,
Okay.
in that sense. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, Representative Kaholo?
Thank you, Major General. This kind of pivots a little bit to pre-preparedness for disasters with roads and infrastructure, and I know DOT may be the right person to ask this question, or maybe you've been working together, but as an example of the Mauna Loa eruption, the Kona community looking at roads and infrastructure of what are the evacuation plans, and can a community completely evacuate in an hour or 2 hours to get to safety, depending upon where the Mauna Loa eruption is going. So my question is, are there any, learning from this experience that it has not been something we've had to discuss before, what are resources to pre-prepared infrastructure plans? Are there ways we can expand roadways so if this event were to happen again, we would have the correct infrastructure or can build upon that infrastructure for better safety and evacuation? And I guess I only give this as an example because I know the Kona roadways and the bottleneck if people had to evacuate.
Okay.
So it's kind of the pre-prep, right?
Right.
If you understand the question.
Yeah, preparedness, right? Try to mitigate a risk in the future.
Yeah, I guess were there conversations where there could potentially be a bottleneck to get out, and can we put funding requests to work with DOT on funding for fixable opportunities that help create additional ways to
Right.
evacuate?
So the answer is yes. We're looking at all the different risks throughout the state. Luke, correct me if I'm wrong, though. I believe the emergency evacuation proponency is with the counties. Is that true? So each of the counties does the oversight of trying to get that together. Some of the challenges we have is who owns the land, right? You know, Luke talked about easement. Case in point is here on Oahu, we've been working with the Waianae Coast, you know, for them to get out of the inundation zone and working with the Department of Defense, seeing if we can get Kole Kole Pass opened again. But there are challenges with federal property, which takes tons of money to make that place safe, right? What we don't want, there's like rock falls and a lot of risk. There's one area that's almost washed out. So it'd be probably more dangerous for them going in there. So, but we're trying to work through these And yes, we would need state resources, right, as we execute a plan to mitigate the risk.
So the county, in working with HIEMA and potentially DOT, would be able to
Yes.
maybe present proposals that could help with just some mitigation areas for disaster preparedness.
correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and we are working closely with the State Department of Transportation. I just had a conversation with Ed Sniffen just a week ago, particularly on this topic.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Great, thank you very much, Representative Kobayashi.
I'm looking at your vacancy report, table 11. Looks like you have 5 pages plus a dozen on page 6. So what's your, I mean, you must have, what, a 30% vacancy?
I believe, you know the percentage? Yeah, it's 30%.
I
So
mean,
let me go back to my
wow.
testimony.
I mean, that's traditionally equal to Department of Ag, who's had that 30% for longer than most of us have been here.
Yeah, I mentioned the challenges, right? And it's
Wow.
really hard recruiting, and then once we get them on, retaining them.
Yeah. I mean.
Yeah, so currently our vacancies are 181, as I briefed previously. But of the 181, 39 are filled with 89-day hires.
I see. Okay. Well, I mean, that's unusually high. Thank you.
Thank you.
Got to work on it.
Thank you, Chair Hashem.
General, you can stay there. It's off the line of Representative Kobayashi's questions. He mentioned Department of Ag. Department of Ag has about 350 people. Within, 3 or 4 years, they hired about 300 people, and they still have a 30% vacancy. Do you have a matrix like that? About how many did you hire over the past 3 years? And
I don't have it offhand.
you don't
but
have that?
Yeah,
Okay.
I can get that for you.
I just wanted to let the members know the kind of perspective that the departments are having as a challenge of retaining.
Yeah,
So-
there is a high level of turnover, definitely.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions? Okay, General, thank you very much
All
for
right,
appearing
Chair.
with us. You know, I think the members have a lot of concerns. The former pandemic and disaster chair is continuing her work in that area. I think with the concurrence of the correction and military chair, they may move that purview to Waterland. So Representative Poi Poi, a lot of that disaster stuff will be under your committee's work. So we look forward to working with you going forward. And if there isn't any further questions. Representative Alcos.
Okay.
Hi, thank you, Chair. I had a privilege of working with the Youth Challenge out at Kailailoa, and it's my area that I'm representing now. And just want to say there was really great guys and great team that you're working out there. I worked with them maybe about 3 times in some cleanups. With the Department of Defense, besides just the Youth Challenge, do you guys offer service for the community as well, like equipments, and come help out the community? Like Darius has one in Nanakuli, where all the tires is out there, and we need help dispose the tires and dispose of all this rubbish that we get around the island, because it's a lot sometimes that we face. Do you guys do community events and helping out the community?
The Youth Challenge has in the past gone out to like Waianae side and help clean out trash and tires. So they have a program. They're required to do so many hours of community service.
I'm looking more of equipment and loaders and haul away rubbish and take them away and dispose of them.
Right. So so if you're talking military, that is federal property. So if I did authorize the use, we'd have to get state funding to reimburse the federal government. And I can tell it's very costly. You'd probably be better off just renting those type of equipment from a civilian vendor.
And thank you. Next question is, I know that you enclosed the gun range out here. I'm not sure if it's something on a different subject, but is there a way that you guys would be able to open up a new gun range for the community, or somebody we can do a co
On Oahu or?
on Oahu?
So I don't think, we don't own anything.
We don't own anything, and the civilians are allowed to shoot at the county line in the Marine Corps base.
So, so the state of Hawaii Department of Defense doesn't own any gun ranges on Oahu. What Rusty Sperry just said is that the Kaneohe Marine Corps base allows civilians to shoot there.
And we have.
But then those are all federal Department of Defense, right? I don't control those.
Waikai is a shooting range.
They close them down.
Yeah,
Temporarily closed to get the lead out of
correct.
the soil, that is.
Yeah, that was a Cocoa Head range.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you very much.
Chair.
Okay,
Now that you've
Representative Ward.
opened it up after closing it, I have a pressing question. These are the guys who keep Hawaii safe. I mean,
Yes.
it's a very important group. And I want to know, the cybersecurity issues, could you give us a brief update on that? Because that's one that hits you quicker than even the missile can be aware of. Cybersecurity, whose kuleana is that and what's the status of it?
So overall, that's my department's responsibility currently, but I'll hand it over to Administrator Frank Pace, who runs the Office of Homeland Security for the state. So it's
And
under
they have
his,
all the cybersecurity under their
he'll
kuleana.
explain what
Oh, okay.
the programs are doing, what we're doing.
Sorry, Chair, for the delay, but this is very important. Or at
Good
least-
morning, and thanks for asking that question. I was hoping someone would. So for cybersecurity for the state of Hawaii, the Office of Homeland Security, along with Enterprise Technology Services, are responsible for developing the plans for dealing with a cyber incident and/or cyber disruption. And you've probably seen several that have occurred recently here in the state and that have impacted both state departments like aviation and with the city and county. So what our office has done is we have worked closely with ETS and our county partners across the state to come up with both plans and then work to identify vulnerabilities that exist within those systems so that we can help both our state department counterparts and those within the counties to prevent and then hopefully very quickly remediate and recover from any type of cyber incident. And one of the recent developments federally that have come down to benefit the state, and as you have seen here as part of our proposals, is that the state and local cybersecurity grant program, which was announced earlier last year, is going to potentially bring in approximately $11.2 million to the state, which through our office and then in cooperation with the state ETS will be able to then work with our counties to further harden and provide more resiliency for our cybersecurity efforts.
So everything's under control.
We are working towards that goal, sir.
Who is ETS or what is ETS?
That is Enterprise Technology Services.
Well, that's a section of City and County of Honolulu.
That's a department within the state of Hawaii, sir.
Doug Murdoch.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so you have Doug Murdoch, who is the head of that, and then we work very closely with the Chief Information Security
And
Officer.
they have all the equipment, all the whatever devices to,
So,
you guys don't need any CIP or stuff with that. It's all federal, basically, right? Is that
well,
what-
we get federal assistance, and the challenge is that Enterprise Technology Services only has purview over certain elements within the state. Beyond that, each county has its own responsibilities and authorities, and then even more so, Department of Education, Judiciary, and so forth, the University of Hawaii system are all partners because it has to be a collaborative effort. It's not something that we control entirely, but we work with them so that as a state, we're able to try and build that resiliency.
Thank you for that. Chair,
welcome.
thank you for your indulgence.
Thank you. Any further? General?
Thank you for the opportunity and Happy New Year, everybody. Aloha.
Okay, thank you very much. Members, I'll just, add this, and I know it's early in our budget hearing process, but as we go through this, and the chair will allow some latitude, especially because everybody's new as far as your line of questioning, but some of it has to be done in subject matter. Our job is at the budget level. And then the other comment that I will make is that understand purview, right? Where what is state purview versus county purview, and refuge tires is county. So if you have a problem, I suggest you work with your county officials and things like that. Thank you very much. We're adjourned.